Pemirsa, Indonesia dan Inggris menandai 72 tahun hubungan bilateral dua negara saat Indonesia menyelenggarakan Presidensi G20.
Lalu bagaimana ikatan kedua negara dalam menyikapi sejumlah isu terkini? Berikut kita simak wawancara Kania Sutisnawinata dengan Duta Besar Inggris untuk Indonesia dan Timor Leste, Owen Jenkins. Berikut ini.
It's such a pleasure to have you with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you for your time. First of all, we want to congratulate, of course, to the people of the United Kingdom for having their new Prime Minister, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak.
Indeed.
I would like to talk about specifically bilateral relations between Indonesia and the UK. This year marks the 72th anniversary of the bilateral relations between Indonesia and the United Kingdom. And from your perspective, what do you think is the most significant progress so far reached, particularly, during these past 2 years during COVID-19?
Yeah. So I think the UK-Indonesia relationship is in a really good place at the moment, and I think the last 2 years have been tough for all of us, but I think we've done a lot together. We're particularly proud, of course, of the health cooperation which has developed between the UK and Indonesia over the pandemic period. We were able to support Indonesia with donations of vaccines, and we were able to work together internationally in organisations like COVAX to make sure everybody got the vaccinations that they needed. But I'm also pleased that we've been developing other aspects of health cooperation, such as on the silent pandemic of antimicrobial resistance, where Indonesia has really focused on that during its G20 presidency, and I think that's very positive because it's another area where international cooperation is needed. But even during the pandemic, I've been very pleased that we haven't let other areas of our cooperation drop.
Yeah.
So we've established a new framework for our trade relationship with a new Joint Economic and Trade Committee. We've done a lot of work together on climate change, as well as on security and other areas. And recently, back in April, we've brought all of that together in a new UK-Indonesia bilateral roadmap, which really sets out the path for the next 2 years for how we're going to develop our relations further.
Tell us a little bit more about this roadmap 2022-2024. What are the key points that the two countries would like to explore and strengthen in the future?
So the great thing about the roadmap is it's really broad, reflecting the breadth of interests which the UK and Indonesia share. So it covers everything from trade and investment to culture, education, sport, creative industries, a bit of everything.
Yeah, sports is a big thing in Indonesia.
A big thing in the UK too, and I've loved the way that Indonesians follow the Premier League, for example. But in the roadmap, I think some of the things that we really want to focus on are firstly trade and investment. All of our countries are facing tough economic times right now. And I think there is much more potential which we can both tap into for mutually beneficial trade and investment in both directions. There's already a lot of British investment in Indonesia. A lot of big British companies are here. I'd like to see more of that. The new framework we have under the roadmap will help with that. But I also want to see us doing more on climate change and energy, for example, where Indonesia's leadership at COP26 in Glasgow last year was hugely impressive, and I want to build on that. So just 10 days ago, our Minister for Asia and the Environment signed a new memorandum of understanding with Minister Siti Nurbaya to support Indonesia's ambitious plans on forestry and land use. And we have a great bilateral program on renewable energy to again assist Indonesia in the transition which it's committed to move to clean energy and to get to net zero carbon by 2060. So there's a lot going on, and those are just two areas.
And COP27 is coming up?
Indeed, which will be a big moment for the world. To deliver on the commitments that were made in Glasgow last year and to try and keep us on that track to avoid catastrophic climate change.
Right. So following the appointment of Rishi Sunak as your new Prime Minister, how will that change or not change the future bilateral relations between the UK and Indonesia?
So I think it will continue to be a really high priority for the new Prime Minister. I don't think it changes that. I think our new Prime Minister is someone who knows the business world, he knows the economy, and he knows that Indonesia and Southeast Asia is where a lot of the growth is going to come from in the next few decades. And he knows that the UK and Indonesia have an opportunity to grow our trade, to support both our economies. So I think he, as somebody who knows this region well, will continue to prioritise and support Indonesia and the relationship that we have.
And he will be attending the G20 Leaders Summit. Indonesia is hosting it.
Indeed.
And it's coming up soon, and I think it's going to be a very interesting forum. What will UK bring to the table?
So the first thing we'll bring is strong support for the Indonesian presidency. I think that Indonesia has been doing an extraordinary job in chairing the G20 under the most difficult circumstances any of us can remember. I think we want to support the thematic areas that Indonesia has set out as priorities, so improving international health architecture, supporting the energy transition and supporting digital transformation. That's the agenda which the world needs, and Indonesia was quite right to set that out as the road to the pandemic recovery. So we're really keen to focus on that thematic agenda and to support Indonesia's goals in taking that forward. Of course, we will also bring to the table the need to discuss the illegal, unprovoked and unjustified war of aggression which Russia has launched against Ukraine. And we will bring to the table the impact and the disruption that that's brought to Indonesia's G20 presidency, but also to the world economy. When the world's top 20 leaders are in a room together, they need to talk about that huge challenge to international law and to the principles of the UN of sovereignty and territorial integrity, and we need to talk about its impacts.
How do you think that is going to affect the sentiment during the Leaders Summit? I mean, with the current tension between Russia and Ukraine, how can each of us, all the countries attending, all the leaders attending the summit, create positive sentiment in approaching all the problems that we are facing right now, all the challenges that we are facing right now, and put in the front collaboration and synergy?
So I think Indonesia has already shown us the way on this. I think the way that Indonesia has chaired the variety of ministerials which I've attended over the last few months, including the foreign ministers, has shown that we can be honest and clear about the damage which Putin's imperialist aggression has done to the world, but we can also be constructive and positive about the thematic agenda, which we all need to keep focusing on. So I don't think those things are incompatible, and certainly the UK comes to the table in Bali with a constructive attitude, with a desire to be honest about the challenges that we face and the challenges that have been created for us by Russia, but also with a strong desire to support Indonesia in taking forward what was always the right agenda for the world at this difficult moment.
What are your thoughts about Indonesia's preparation for the Leaders Summit so far?
I think it's been brilliant.
Yeah?
I think Indonesia has done a wonderful job, as I said, under very difficult circumstances. And my heart goes out to my Indonesian colleagues. I think that they started the year with the best possible agenda. We all wanted to work on that. They were thrown a tremendously difficult curveball by Russia, which really disrupted the preparations. And I think Indonesia has done a wonderful job at managing that disruption imposed by one country on the rest of us, sticking to its agenda, but allowing space also to address this huge geopolitical threat which we all face.
Yeah, particularly in the UK. The UK right now is also trying to overcome its own economic challenges. How can Indonesia and the UK collab in overcoming these challenges that the UK is facing?
We're all facing the same economic headwinds, I think. International prices are going up. Putin's war of aggression has driven up food prices, fertilizer prices, fuel prices. And we've seen just in the last few days the extent to which President Putin is prepared to use food as a weapon, including against the very poorest people in the world. And I think what countries like the UK and Indonesia can do together is stand strong together to defend international law and the institutions which keep us all safe and prosperous. So I was really proud that the UK and Indonesia voted together in the United Nations General Assembly to condemn Russia's aggression against Ukraine. And I think that we need to continue to stand up for those values in the UN, but also supporting organisations like the World Trade Organization and the international financial institutions, which do so much to provide a solid economic basis for free trade and the other things which keep us prosperous.
Very well. Ambassador Jenkins, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much.